Hey there everybody, this is a video to act as the user manual for your Bureck CD Thermostat. I'll try to cover everything here, but if there's anything that I don't cover, please feel free to reach out and ask questions and we'll update the video to make sure that it gets out to everyone. So when you turn your thermostat on, which you will have to do with this switch here, if you put the switch up, that is the on position. When you turn your thermostat on, you will be greeted with the home screen. Here you can see the current temperature, which is currently reading as 97, the set temperature is 78, the swing, which is 4, the clock, the battery indicator, the menu indicator, which is currently on main menu, the state of the thermostat, which is deactivated, and the schedule, if it's activated or not globally. So as we mentioned, currently when you are charging your CD thermostat with a battery, it's going to heat up in the case and it's going to read a higher temperature than it actually is. It's not 97 degrees in here. That's just a reality of charging the battery. The IC that handles the battery charging produces quite a bit of heat. And unless we were going to make another external charger, which didn't really make the most sense to us, that's just how it's going to have to be. We're going to try to come out with a software solution in the future that will automatically deactivate the thermostat during that initial phase of charging. But once the battery's charged up and is running on power, it won't be a problem. It's just during the initial charging, you can see the battery indicator is low right now. And so when that's going on, you're going to want to deactivate the thermostat most likely. So that's the first feature we'll talk about. If you hit enter in any menu, you start editing things. And then we're going to go right until we get to the thermostat state menu here. You have three options. You have thermo active, you have heater off, and you have thermostat deactive. So when the thermostat's active, it's going to act just like you would expect. It's going to turn your heater on when the set temperature is higher than the current temperature, turn it off when that's the opposite. And it's just going to operate like a normal home thermostat. When you turn it to thermostat deactivated, it's not going to do anything. It will not communicate with your heater at all. And when you set it to heater off, it will consistently send off signals to keep your heater off. This is really useful if you are going to be away from your heater for a while and you want to make sure it doesn't get turned on by accident. If you have pets or just things get bumped, you never know what happens. It can be really nice to be able to just turn it off from there. So when you're doing your initial charging and it's reading too high, you'll most likely just want to change it to thermostat deactivated, and then you can change it back to thermostat activated later once the temperature cools down. So going over the rest of the things on the main menu here, swing is probably the most important feature. To start with, what swing does is it's the difference in temperature that will activate and deactivate your heater. So right now you can see if I change the set temperature up to 99, nothing happens. Nothing happens when I hit 100, 101, 102, 103, and then once I hit 104, it's because I have the thermostat deactivated. There we go. Once you get up to, I think it should have actually just been on at 103, heating will appear in the bottom right corner, which indicates that the thermostat is currently telling your heater to heat. And it did not do that when we got just above 99 or when we got to 99. That's because the swing is 4. So we have to be 4 degrees above the current temperature. The set temperature needs to be 4 degrees above the current temperature. Or the current temperature needs to be 4 degrees below the set temperature for heating to be initiated. And then once we get back to the set temperature, the heating will be turned off and it'll keep your heater off. So you can change this swing setting just like all the other settings. You go over, highlight it, and go up and down. And this will allow you to control how often your heater is cycling on and off. A lot of people have issues with sooting up of their heater, and that can happen from excessive cycling or from running it on low for long periods of time. And it'll use more power a lot of times if it cycles on and off because that glow plug it uses to turn on uses a lot of power. And it can also just be a little bit noisy and annoying. So you can have this control to be able to make it cycle on and off less frequently or more frequently if you want a more stable temperature. Next is the clock. You can go over and change it just like you expect. You highlight it, go up and down with both the hours and the minutes. The clock time is saved when you hit enter again and exit the menu. and it will be stable over time while it is sleeping. And then also it will be saved when you power off and back on. And it will continue counting even while powered off. It has a low battery mode in it. When it's not acting as a thermostat, it uses very, very negligible power, almost nothing, to keep that clock going. So if you don't use the thermostat that often, maybe you use it only on the weekends, you can just turn the thermostat off and it should keep the clock as long as the battery isn't exceptionally low. And it should be able to keep the battery for quite a long, or the clock for quite a long time, which is a nice feature. And then over here, you've got the battery indicator. The battery indicator will read a little bit higher when it's plugged in than when it's unplugged. You can see it drop down 1 bar when I unplugged it. That's just the nature of getting a battery level from reading voltage. It's too simple of a machine to really necessitate using something like a shunt to get a more accurate battery level indicator. So that's how it is. And you can see it's got 1, 2, and 3. And there's a little Z there to indicate that it's charging. And you can see if I unplug it, the Z goes away. It's not charging anymore. Plug it back in and then Z comes back as charging. Great. Next is the main menu indicator, which is just telling us we're on the main menu. Make sure you don't get lost. That's all to really be said about that for the moment. And then there's the thermostat active. We already talked about that. You have active, deactivated, and heater off. And then schedule. So this is the global control for the schedule. If you don't want the schedule to ever run, you set it to off. If you do want it to run, you set it to on. To access the schedule, you can hit the right arrow or the left arrow, and you'll see time 1, time 2, time 3, and time 4. So there's 4 times that you can edit for the schedule. And you can see right now they are all deactivated. And if you go over here and you turn schedule off, you'll see it actually says schedule off. That just makes sure that you don't think you have one of the times on, but really the global schedule is turned off, so it won't do anything. So I'll go back and turn that on. So these schedules work just like they do on a normal home thermostat. So let's see what time we have. It's set to 2:12 right now. So we will make a schedule for 2:13, set the temperature to 80 and the swing to 2. So when we get to 2:13, that will fire and it will change the temperature and the swing. That's all there really is to be said about that. It works just like you would expect. So next, if we hit the right and the left buttons at the same time, we will enter the hold menu. The hold menu is a way to save some frequently used temperature and swing value that you want to go back to all the time. Common use for this would be if you have a pump house that you use as a garage maybe, or just a garage that has plumbing and you don't want anything to freeze in there. Every time you leave, you're going to be setting it down to probably something around 40 with a swing of, 40 with a swing of 8. And you're going to want to do that every time you leave, and then every time you come back in, you're going to want to change it back to a comfortable temperature like 70. So we have this hold menu just to make that a little bit quicker so you don't have to press a bunch of buttons. You just press left and right, it goes to the hold menu. This is what's going to be controlling the thermostat, and then you press left and right again, it'll go back to the settings that you had before. While you're in the hold menu, schedules won't change the temperature that's currently being monitored for. So if the schedule that we just set off that was 80 degrees was to fire, then we're still going to be turning the heater on and off around this 40 degrees and 8 degree swing. But once you exit the hold menu, the temperature and swing on the main menu will be changed by that, which is just a convenient way if you know during the day when you're in there you want it to be warm, and in the night when you're in there you want it to be cold. It's just a convenient way to keep those settings and not have them be overridden by the hold menu. So if we exit the hold menu, here we are back. Oh, and I forgot to activate the timer, so it should have gone off then. But, oops. Okay, now it's activated. If we come back in the hold menu and just wait a minute till we get to 14:15, it will change that on the main menu. And I'll pause this until that happens. All right, we hit the time, and now when we go back to the main menu, we can see we've got 81 and a swing of 2, which is what we left that set as. So that's just a quick and convenient feature of the hold menu, and it doesn't override the schedule. And you can see when you go over to the hold menu that menu indicator changes to hold menu from main menu, just so you know if you're on the hold menu or the main menu. You also don't have this thermostat active and schedule on control over there because the schedule isn't used, it's in the background, and the thermostat is on when you're in the hold menu, because otherwise there wouldn't be a point in being in the hold menu. Okay, so next we'll go into the settings. So if you hit the up and the down button at the same time, you'll go into the settings. And the first setting that we should talk about is actually on page 2. It's the clone remote setting. So this is what you're going to do when you first get your CD thermostat and you want to pair it with your heater. The CD thermostat is compatible with any Chinese diesel heater that uses this simple style remote. So the way that we attach the CD thermostat to your diesel heater is to clone the remote. So you hit enter, and it says waiting for on code. So you press the on code. There we go, on code received, waiting for off code received. It can be a little bit finicky when you're cloning. These remotes don't send very clear RF, it seems. So sometimes you need to press it, hold it, press it a bunch of times for it to hear it. But once you have it cloned, it'll communicate with your diesel heater, no problem. Every once in a while, you'll have to try to clone again because it'll fail because one of them won't be heard, but usually it's pretty easy to do first try. So once we've cloned the remote, this will be communicating with your diesel heater. And the way to check that everything is working is to go over to RF self-test and hit the enter button. And it says testing. The light flashes to show that it's sending RF, and then it says self-test successful. So it's successful, and the way we're doing the testing is we have the ability to send and receive radio frequency on here, which is how we're able to clone the remote. So that ensures that the remote is working properly. It can help with troubleshooting if you're having issues with your diesel heater to see if the issue is the remote or if the issue is the diesel heater. Like if the remote got damaged somehow, maybe the antenna got cut, it won't successfully complete the self-test, and you'll know that you have a problem with that and you need to talk to us. Whereas if this is working, then likely it's a problem with the diesel heater in one way or another. So let's go back to the main first page of the settings. First thing we have is pair mode. So when you are pairing a simple remote to a Chinese diesel heater, you press the key combination on the diesel heater to enter pairing mode, and then you press an on signal from a remote to pair it to the heater. So if you want to connect your CD thermostat to 2 heaters at once, if you have 2 that are heating a slightly larger space or something, what you could do is clone the first remote on the first Chinese diesel heater and then set the second Chinese diesel heater into pair mode and come over here and hit pair. And what that does is it sends the on signal multiple times, and that should pair it to your second diesel heater. Next, we have the use battery setting. You should not need to mess with this. It should be set to on if yours has a battery and off if yours does not. But if you were to toggle it, all it does is gets rid of the battery indicator up there. You'll still run off the battery if you have a battery involved or installed. So you don't need to mess with that. Oops. Failsafe. What this does is once the battery reaches a very low level and the thermostat is going to die soon, a message will appear that says battery critical, and it will send consistent power off codes to your heater. This makes sure that your heater is never left in an on state when your thermostat dies, so it doesn't overheat or overheat your space or something to that effect. It's probably best to keep this on. We left you with the option to turn it off. If you don't want that, you can just have the thermostat die when it runs out of battery, and then the Chinese diesel heater will just be left in whatever state it was in last. It'll be either on or off. It'll just keep doing whatever it heard last from the thermostat. So it's up to you. It's probably best to keep it in the on position. Reset to factory default will just reset everything to defaults. and you will need to reclone your remote. You can select your units if you want to use Fahrenheit or Celsius. You can change the temperature calibration type from single point to 2 point. It's probably best to just keep that on single point. It's a little bit less confusing. Clone remote, we already talked about that, and self-test, we already talked about it. And then here on the last page is the temperature calibration. So if the thermometer in your CD thermostat is not reading accurately for the ambient temperature, you can calibrate it. What you'll need to do is get a thermostat that you know reliably reads the temperature, and then come to this page. So let's say I have a thermostat next to me and it says that it's 70 degrees in here. I can change the calibration to value with the up and down arrows, and I will change it up to 70 degrees. And then when I hit enter, it will set this calibration point. And so I hit enter, and you can see those bottom two numbers are updated. So raw is reading 102. That means that the sensor is reading that it's 102 degrees in here, and reference is reading 70, which means that I calibrated it to 70. So now the thermostat knows whenever it thinks it's 102 degrees, it's actually 70, and that's what it'll tell you. Obviously, it's not 102 degrees in here right now, but since I'm charging the battery, the internal circuit is heating up and making it hot, so it's reading high. So you won't normally see such a high number, most likely, unless you have a defective unit or it's hot out. If you did need to do 2 point calibration, if you found that your temperature was off when you get far away from your set point, you could come over here and turn on 2 point calibration. You see that opens up this other menu. And now what you want to do is set your second calibration point at a temperature hopefully much further away than the first one. So an easy way to do this is to go outside in the winter when it's cold out with your thermometer and your CD thermostat. Ideally, you want to leave it out there for a while so that it reaches ambient temperature fully, so you have a very accurate calibration point. And say we were outside and I was reading that it's 28 degrees out. I go to the second calibration point and I will go down to 20 degrees. There, and then I hit enter. And of course, the raw is 102 because it's still the same temperature in here. So this will make a pretty wild temperature reading on the main menu if I was to leave it like this. But that's how you make a second point in your 2 point calibration. If you make a mistake and you can't recalibrate it for whatever reason, you can come over to the first page and reset to factory defaults. And then you'll see that the calibration points are reset to default, which is not changing anything. And then the fourth page just tells you your code version. So I'm on R1.02.03. And that will be useful if you're having any issues to talk to us, or if you need to see if you need to update anything. So that should cover everything that you need to know for your Bureck CD thermostat. Please let me know if you have any questions, reach out, and we'd be happy to get anything answered or fixed. Thank you very much. Have a great day.